Dear respected Thai, dear community, I'm so happy to introduce Dene Donalds, who's a Dharma teacher and who has had many years working out in the most difficult environments with his practice, working mostly with prisoners, but many other people as well. So Dene, if you'd like to come to unmute yourself for the guided meditation, and I will, you'll just have to tell me when you'd like the bell and I'll invite the bell for you. Bowing out.
So, dear friends, dear Thai, dear Sangha, so comfortable this 15-minute guided meditation. Please think about your posture. So back straight. Still with the body as well as with the mind, and a volition to just be here and now as we practice together, supported by the energy of the Sangha. Remember to offer yourself that gentle smile as you're sitting, and to follow your breath. To be solidly in the present, here, now, still, solid. So, dear friend, dear Terry, may I have 3 bells?
Terry, we couldn't hear it previously. Check your settings, please.
Breathing in. I know I'm breathing in. Breathing out. I know I'm breathing out. In, out. Breathing in, my breath grows deeper. Breathing out, my breath grows slower. Deep. Breathing in, I calm my body. Breathing out, I feel ease. Calm, ease. Breathing in, I smile. Breathing out, I release. Smile, release. Breathing in, I dwell in the present moment. Breathing out, it is a wonderful moment. Present moment, wonderful moment. Dear Thai, dear Sangha, like many of us in the Plum Village tradition, I sometimes take Buddhism and mindfulness off the meditation cushion and into the world. Thai teaches and supports us by telling us that there is a need for being peace rather than just making peace in the world. Thai tells us that being peace is the key. Being peace is the key to engaged Buddhism. So I often have to sit quietly and still and contemplate how I embody peace. I think when my heart is open, when it is overflowing with love and with understanding, when that love is boundless, I think that's when I'm most able to offer peace to myself, to people, and to the earth, and the complex challenges that we all have to face and meet in today's world. I think when my heart is a little tight and a little empty, and my face is a little grumpy, I think then I may not have a lot to offer. And I may, when I go into the world, do more harm than good, even if my intention is to ease the suffering in this complex world of ours. When my wholesome seeds are weak, I need to be with Sangha. I need to be with friends. I need to be in nature in order that those seeds are watered and they become healthy and happy. And then when my seeds of peace and happiness have become nourished and established, I'm more able to offer help in situations where there is great suffering. And to do this, I think I need to be, as Thai teaches, forever watchful, and know when I have enough energy of mindfulness to help, or when I might make the situation worse, when I might be overwhelmed by the difficult seeds within me when I am in a difficult situation of suffering. Thich Nhat Hanh, Thai, speaks of practicing engaged Buddhism and needing to develop pathways through our busyness and unhelpful energies that can overwhelm us and lead to burnout. And I think by being forever watchful, it's possible to pick up the signs when our unhelpful seeds are coming up in situations of difficulty and suffering. When I'm on the cushion, I regularly ask myself, within Sangha and life, how can we cultivate the qualities of attention, loving kindness, and inner renewal that can sustain a life of service? Because to sustain and support a life of service outside, we also need to sustain our wholesome seeds inside. Finally, I think when I truly realize that all things inter are, when it's a true realization which is embodied, I can stop my blaming, my judging, my arguing, my harming, and truly begin to understand the other person, the other situation, and also begin to understand myself, which helps me to sustain myself and enables me to, when the time is right, reach out. Thank you for listening, dear friends.
Dear Dean, thank you so much. You could have had a little bit longer, but we'll have time for questions afterwards, and I'm sure that there will be some questions for you when we've heard from the other speakers. So where is she? There she is. So it's very happy that I am to introduce somebody that I've only just met as well. Dean is a long friend, but Fleur I only met recently. And it was, I think, Dean and Kev that suggested that I invite you, Fleur. So Fleur is trained in hospital chaplaincy, but has also worked in pastoral care in support of university students. So I'd like to invite you, Fleur, to speak in a moment. I will invite the bell once, just to put one speaker I was going to say put them to bed, but I don't mean that. So to give us a minute or two between, and then you can come straight in after the bell, Fleur.
Dear friends, dear Sangha, it's a great joy and privilege to be here and able to share my reflections on this theme of reaching out and continuing our teacher as best we can. And wonderful to be speaking alongside my fellow practitioners to offer reflections on spiritual caregiving in hospitals to patients, carers, families, and staff across multicultural and multi-faith backgrounds. Amongst the most challenging situations healthcare teams face in paediatric palliative care are conflicts with patients' parents over care decisions. There's no technology to help us through the complexity, challenge, and pain of this most difficult of decisions to withhold, withdraw, or limit life-sustaining treatment in children with life-shortening or life-threatening conditions. Medical knowledge and medical practice alone are not sufficient to determine what's in a child's best interests, as there are many considerations, including social, emotional, and welfare. Rather, guidance arises through true sharing in open discussions and having sufficient time to reflect and consider. One of the most moving encounters involved a child from a Christian family whose condition did not meet the criterion for a long hoped for lung transplant. Medical opinion was that the donor lungs wouldn't survive in the patient's body because the surrounding anatomy was in too poor a condition. This opinion was supported by MDT consultations and independent review in a clinical ethics committee. But the patient's family, our father, felt that the family hadn't been given a chance and continued to fight the hospital's decision. So a second medical opinion and review was sought, which confirmed the hospital's opinion. We know that families will leave no stone unturned when trying to save the life of their child. But due to continued conflict, this child was left to face death without the presence and support of his parents, who continued to fight the hospital to the end. His mother was absent, and he rarely saw his father, which left him feeling intensely bewildered, sad, angry, distressed, confused, and frightened in an indescribably powerfully felt way. When someone suffers so deeply, one has a profound opportunity to offer true love mantras, particularly the third, "Dear one, I know you're suffering, and that is why I'm here for you," whether spoken or unspoken. On one occasion, we arrived by the child's bedside to witness a difficult and traumatic prayer, which went something like this: "Please, God, please help me to bring the family back together. Oh God, please help me to stop them fighting. Help me to bring them back together again. Oh God, please help me." Witnessing such unhappiness evokes great compassion and a wish to remove or reduce it. Simply being there to comfort him as he reaches out his arms for a needed embrace, to be truly there to hold his small hands. In this simple way, we can be there. Being there may be all one has to offer sometimes, but sometimes it may be all that is needed in that moment. Sometimes the chaplain may be left with a feeling of wishing to be able to offer more to help. But part of understanding complexity is to recognize to what degree health professionals as human beings may be unequipped, unprepared, and unsupported to address this practice. To be there with true love for others, as Ty has often taught, means first being able to be there for oneself with true love, care, and understanding. Paul Coelho, in his book The Alchemist, talks about becoming friends with our hearts, so that neither our heart nor we are capable of betraying the other. We know that being there for someone through profound difficulties, though it may seem a small intervention, can deepen the resources of a patient, particularly with regard to establishing trust. Trust is acknowledged as a key resource, particularly for patients with lung disease. My colleague reads a book to the patient called No Matter What. It's a struggle because the patient will do anything he can to cover up the present moment and using any distraction to do so. It's hard on my colleague, so I place my hand on her shoulder in support. At the end of the second reading, the patient repeats twice the message, "So I am loved no matter what." And though there's evident disbelief and doubts evolve around the family in his prayer, as well as some confusion to the God to whom he prays, yet he doesn't doubt the loving friendship around him in the presence of the chaplain and the nurse beside him. In supervision, feelings and observations about our encounter are exchanged. We acknowledge the father's continued fighting undermines the patient's whole being. Looking deeply, one sends loving kindness to the chaplain, the family, and the patient. For the chaplain is there to offer understanding, to sustain faith, and to nourish true love. Fleur bowing.
Thank you so much, Fleur. So another new friend to me anyway. Where are you? There she must be on the other screen. Just checking that she's still here. Is Ali MacKenzie.
Yes, I'm still here.
Of course you are. There you are. Okay. So Ali is an aspirant to our order, and the only information she's given me is that she is employed by the Morecambe Bay Poverty Truth Commission, which sounds absolutely wonderful. And so I'm looking forward very much to hearing more about Ali's work. Thank you, Ali. If you'd like to just begin.
Okay, thank you, Teresa. Thank you, everybody. And yes, what a very moving talk to go after is what I'm sitting with. So thank you, Fleur, and thank you, Dean. And before I explain what a Poverty Truth Commission is, I think Fleur saved me some time in that self-care, or everything Dean said about looking after yourself and how that is so important in what you bring to sit with others who are suffering, and everything Fleur said about loving presence, sitting alongside people, I can only echo. So my talk is a little more practical about how I use Plum Village practice in the everyday work that I do. So a Poverty Truth Commission it's a national movement that was started about 14 years ago in Scotland and now spread all over the UK. The thinking behind it is based on the principle that no lasting change regarding poverty will be accomplished without people who are experiencing poverty being at the heart of bringing about any change. So the whole focus is to bring people with lived experience of poverty together with those who are in positions of influence to bring about change for the better. So leaders from councils, the NHS, the police, business people, people come together and meet and deeply listen to each other to build relationship, to try and bring about change for the better together. So lived experience has become a buzzword and the trendy tick box thing to do in the last few years. For me, it's been on the same sort of journey mindfulness has. Nobody knew what it was a few years ago, and now everybody wants to be doing it. But lived experience can be really watered down in the process. So the first practice point in running a commission is to stop, calm and rest, is to slow down. We take time to know each other. The whole process takes 2 to 3 years. Everyone at the start is really impatient because we live in a world where everyone wants to do everything super fast, move on to the next thing, rush the solutions really quickly. So getting off the treadmill and taking time to get to know the people you're sitting in a room with who you'd never normally meet, people really struggle with it. They just want to rush to solutions. So stopping, calming, resting is the first thing we continually try to impress on people. The other practice point for me and for everyone is to change your perception of who is it who's living in poverty. I work with a lot of people who think they're just doing good deeds for the poor people. So the change in perception is, as Dean was saying, you're sitting alongside, there is no other. And some people seem to find this harder than others to do. The way to do it is to sit alongside people, to really be present with people. I do a lot of sitting with people through grief, rage, suicide attempts, just really sitting alongside people. People often assume I work with people who are homeless, in drug addiction, have always lived on disadvantaged estates. And yes, I do work with those people, but people who are also living in poverty I currently work with someone who's got a degree first in English literature from Oxford University, an ex-professor of agriculture, someone who used to be head of languages at a secondary school. The point being, anyone can fall into poverty given a few life-changing situations. So changing one's perception is key in order to be able to sit alongside people as people. And then obviously the whole process involved, the key thing we do is deeply listen. So the practice of deep listening and loving speech is key. And this we'd spend months working on this because everybody really struggles to learn how to really listen, whether it's someone who's recently homeless and are filled with rage and despair at how they've been let down by countless organisations, or whether they're someone very high up in the NHS or some other organisation who's used to people obeying them at the click of a finger. Everyone has to learn how to create a safe space where judgments are put on hold, years of wrong perceptions are challenged, prejudices are aired and owned, and hopefully over time changed. We use a hula hoop as a listening piece, not a talking piece, it's a listening piece. So whoever's holding the hoop, everybody else is really practicing deep listening when they're talking. And we've tried various objects for people to hold, but they were all deemed too hippified or just weird shit, and nobody wanted to do it. But the hula hoop works because it's funny, it makes people laugh, and it also represents sitting in a circle where everybody's experience is valid and needs to be heard. And humour is really important, and that takes incredible facilitation skills and trust to be able to hold both laughter and tears in a situation where you're hearing many, many traumatic experiences. We practice flower watering a lot. We don't call it flower watering, but we always do a check-in and make sure everybody has something positive to say about the other person. We have to be very aware of the levels of trauma in the room and adjust accordingly. So some people find silence and going back to the breath very helpful. For other people's, it triggers trauma instantly. So we have to create break options that range from going back to your breath or going out for a fag with others and everything in between. The important thing is to give people the choice to regulate how best they feel able. We encourage people to get to know each other as people. So an example of this would be the head of housing at the council, moving from feeling nervous of someone she considered to be an ex-army thug, her words, to through COVID going and having chips with him on his front drive every week and just chatting because they'd become really good friends. So it's about removing your prejudices, removing what you've been brought up to think. And together, those two people have now created a new charity for people who've been street homeless for years and years and years. And once they were rehoused, continued to go back onto the streets. Together with the experience of the homeless person and the head of housing, they've created a new charity where over 30 people have been rehoused, long-term street homeless, and not one of them has lost their tenancies. So this is the sort of project that results from people really with the experience meeting and getting to know the people who influence the decisions that affect them. A lot of the change that occurs is unseen and unquantifiable. It's more about system change. It's trying to change from a move towards seeing each other as human beings as opposed to statistics. I'm not aware of the time, sorry, I'm hoping someone's going to tell me when I've run out of my 7 minutes. I could talk a lot about some of the changes that have occurred, but the basic change is we've created new jobs, we've created system change, we've encouraged Lancaster City Council, instead of their policy previously was to hold the public at arm's length and stick to the rules. Having got to know people who are living in poverty, they now say to their staff, treat people kindly as if it was a much loved family member and bend the rules where you can. And if you're not sure, come and see me. This was working with someone very high up in the council. And this resulted in a family who were about to be homeless, the children were about to be separated from the mother. And this had been going on for months. The minute this member of staff heard that they could bend the rules, they were able to be rehoused somewhere that wasn't quite within the rules. So a lot of the work that happens isn't seen. I think Terry's bowing at me. I'll finish there.
Well, I was going to offer you, say, half a minute to wind up. But, you know, we can always bend the rules. I'm a great believer in bending rules. And if you have anything else you'd like to add, then please do.
I think really that it's about, for me, it's about self-care. I hear a lot of difficult stories. So everything Dean said, if I am not in a place where I am watering my own seeds, where my heart is open and full of love, and I am able to sit with people to enable them to meet together and try to create the things I've described, that's the building block. You can't, and that's something I find very, very difficult. It's a lifelong lesson for me to be learning that one. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Ali. I think we're doing very well in a kind of range as well. Self-care, moving example, and some practical stuff as well. I'm very amazed, but well, not really. Things do tend to fall into a kind of comfortable existence. So our last speaker will be known to so many of us, dear Kev, who I think I met at the Mindful Living show in London years ago, doing a great job on social media contact and promotion. And since then, he's a trustee. He's our guru as far as Zooming and other bits of IT that I probably know nothing about. And he's also a member of the Order of Interbeing. But of course, not everybody knows that he wears other hats as well. One of which is as a chaplain. And let me just remind myself what he says about himself here. Oh, it's not there. It's gone off. So Kevin, you'll just have to tell us more about yourself by yourself. So here we go then. Thank you so much for being there, everybody. And when Kevin's finished, we'll have an opportunity to ask questions.
Thank you so much, Terry. And thank you so much as well, Dean, Fleur and Ali. It's so wonderful to be here, also to see so many familiar faces on the screen, and to be able to share a little bit of time with everyone as well and offer a few reflections. I'm conscious of the elements around time. Anyone that knows me well will know I can ramble on a bit too, but I will try to place my words with a bit of care. And I don't think anything actually that I can offer today will come as a surprise, because I think most of what I could offer has been voiced by the other three panelists. Actually, the things that I would consider to be important in my role, they've already mentioned, they've already been there. So what I do, now I'm employed as a NHS Hospital Chaplain. So I'm a full-time employee of Shrewsbury and Telford NHS Hospital Trust. I made my way in chaplaincy as a volunteer, which I think is also really important to say, with our wonderful local hospice in Wolverhampton. I had no idea that I would one day become a chaplain, and I didn't set out with an intention of being a chaplain either. If you should have asked me 5 or 6 years ago, Kev, what are you going to do when you grow up? I wouldn't know. I'm still not sure I know what I'm going to do when I grow up. I say that lightheartedly. I was in the military. I was in the Royal Air Force for 36 years until leaving this February. And I genuinely didn't know what I would do next. But I began to be a little bit more certain when I could see what my next step was, and my next step was, and when I could really be centered in the present and think, okay, can you see your next step? Yes, that's nice. And I found my way forward at the hospice because I realized, with having a couple of loved ones cared for at the hospice, what they had really given us as a family, they had given us time. And we set out with an intention, first of all, of raising some money for the hospice. But I also realized, yes, it was really important to raise money for the hospice to support them to continue their work. But what they've really given us in our family, they've given us this amazing quality of time with our loved ones, which we could never repay. So when I moved back to the Midlands, I thought, how could I offer some time? Could I share some time? And that time I was able to share with the spiritual care team at the hospice and to learn and grow a little bit through that. And access various other things and courses and things, but with each step I took forward, this new path and direction grew. So I found my way through volunteering. Coming from the military, I had all sorts of assumptions around healthcare, about how things would be in healthcare. And some of those assumptions were corrected fairly quickly. I found, of course, from experiences of the last few years, trauma is really significant amongst colleagues. Hardship now is really significant. Stigma is also still really significant within healthcare settings as well. But having come from a military background, I do have some things that I can offer within that. We know, for instance, from military studies that it can take up to 7 years for complex PTSD to emerge. And I have a sense, and if we think about the initial lockdowns of the pandemic and the activity there, first of all, I had this sense, one of my lines is we can support each other to be well in this, in the work that we do. And so rather than just waiting for a bow wave of difficulty to arise in 2027, how can we respond now to support some of those things that are really there for people, to allow them to be voiced, to allow them to be heard. I learned an expression, rather than when I first went into healthcare, one of the things I learned at the hospice, I used to talk about taking time or finding time. And I think that's a common thing we can bandy around. And then a nurse said to me once, where do I take time from, Kev? Do I take time from my patients? Do I take time from my family? You know, where does this time come from? So I learned to use the expression a little bit more. We can find opportunities to refresh our energy in our day so that we don't finish the day feeling depleted and spent and burned out. And one of my responsibilities in my chaplaincy work actually is also to find opportunities to refresh my energy, to look after myself as I make my way. What supports me? Spiritual friendship. Absolutely. These qualities of spiritual friendship, which I think we could talk about at length, but we find it not just in Sangha spaces. I find it with friends and colleagues of many faiths and traditions. I learn so much from them. I've learned so much from the people that I've worked with over recent years and from the team that I work with now, who are also curious as well and welcoming. But one thing I've noticed about spiritual friendship is it has a non-transactional nature. It's not about the business. It's not about the task. It's not about the work. It's not, can you do this for me and I'll do this for you? We share our time together and meet what arises. So I'll just talk for a couple of more minutes at what I don't do, rather than talking about what I do. So if it's not about what we do, and if it's about being, not doing, what don't I do? I don't rush. My role is to share time and to share a smile even when sometimes the people I visit, the smile might be harder to find for them. I have a heart condition that helps me be aware. Sometimes I have decreased energy, and so I have to have the kind of quality of energy to make my way in the world and to be with and interact with others. But I know that the people I'm talking to may have less energy than me, and I might be speaking to them. It might be coming through that little bit of fogginess that can be there with that decreased energy, but I can be calm and peaceful in that space. As a chaplain, I don't lead with my faith, and actually neither do any of my colleagues. The visits are about the people we meet, and it's not about me. But I am honest with people about my faith background when that comes up. I meet people where they are. I respond to what arises. Sometimes it's a conversation, but often, as Ali said, often it's deep listening. Deep listening so that others feel heard. Listening solely with the intention that someone else can suffer less. I see, I notice, I wonder, I realize all those activities can happen in my own reflection, but arguably I think one of the greatest gifts we can offer each other is to listen so that someone else can suffer less. And what I look for in a room, I think one of Ty's greatest wisdoms was the distillation of the heavenly abodes, the immeasurable minds, the Brahma Viharas, to talk about love, compassion, joy. Ty would often say inclusiveness. Sometimes when I speak to a patient and their energy is down, inclusiveness, they might look at me with a wandering eye, what's he talking about? And I've learned that togetherness can really be understood. So in a room, particularly when I'm meeting with families, I look for love. Not every family talks in terms of love. They don't use the word love often, but you can certainly notice when it's absent. I can recognize compassion as a limitless qualities. And I can absolutely see sometimes when that compassion can be absent from colleagues sometimes. But I think compassion fatigue is a misunderstood term. And so I try to encourage the understanding around compassion as being a limitless quality. Joy, even in difficulty. Sometimes families will share great joy in reminiscing, being together. And then togetherness that connects us in many different ways. I notice when I think about that, the essence of equanimity, I try to notice as well, what am I inclining towards? What am I leaning away from? Why am I having that response? Sometimes when I find myself leaning away, it's time for me to actually adjust that and to step in. And where necessary, I think also we create sacred space within those moments to share what needs to be shared. And I think those are the key themes I wanted to offer today. And I'm also conscious of the time, so I should shush now. Thank you.